Okay. So last time actually we talked about teaching up to 29. So before this one, I read to talk again. So this is our neuron. Okay. Our neuron, and then this is our neuron, the same. So this is the original output. Why we need the activation function. So this comes as the same as a supportive vector machine. So this original space. And we need one more activation function. So activation function has two purposes. Last time I already talked about this one. So one purpose is transfer from original space to feature space. We just talked about feature space. Okay, but supportive vector machine, suppose from 2D, it probably will project to very high, 10D or something. It's very high. It's up to you. Okay, but didn't say no. That's a good way. It's not a good. You just reproject to very high one. That's not a good way. So deep learning each time just transfer to the new space just a little bit. So for example, okay, there is a simple sigmoid function here, and we'll explain this one later. Use this example. Okay. So the other purpose for the activation function is to try to separate to the zero, either 0, 1, 0 or 1. We don't, this is original input, right? Sorry, this X. After weight, after bias, you have output Z. So output Z is here. So in this example, it's 4. So output Z is in this direction, this axis. Okay. So if Z has a bigger value, this is sigmoid, for example, Z is a bigger value, and the output in the Y direction will be bigger. If Z has less than 0, and they will become this this Y axis, the law will become smaller in this direction. But the sigmoid is meaning we don't like the value is between around 10.5. So the activation function has two purposes. One is the nonlinear function. The second is that we do not like your output value just around the 0.5. You want, if there's a value is bigger than a little bit, they'll push to 1 or push to the 0. 你不希望在这里 confuse 在这里，这是 activation function 的目的。当然，它也是帮你 normalize 0到1。它帮你 normalize 0到1这边，所以出这个0到这边的值，这是 activation function 的目的。好，那我们上次有举到这个例子嘛，这个例子就是 if input x1, x2, that's 2 x's. But in our case, if your image is 512 by 512, that's meaning each sample, each pixel in the 512 by 512 dimension. So this is already in very high dimension. Okay, so if your activation function is too high, oh, that's incredible. Your space will be too high. Okay, so in our deep learning, actually we don't really project to the very high dimension. No, we just transfer to the right space. So for example, if our input is this one, it's an exclusive OR problem, and our output is if the difference will be 1, right? The same will be 0. So suppose we use equal to 1, we use a red dot, and 0 become blue dot. So this distribution, how can we, these two classes, this simple, and how can we separate this one in x1, x2 dimension? OK， 这有一点我强调一下，SVM 的目的是要把 reproject 到高纬度去哦。我们刚刚讲两个那个做分类有两个方式嘛，一个就是在低纬度只用非线性方式来做再分类嘛。这个可是非线性你要这个曲线是 x 次方 x 5次方 x 几次方，你不知道，因为越多次方的话，那个曲线就越扭曲嘛，然后对 noise 越敏感，对 noise 会很 sensitive to noise，你不晓得。那第二个方式就是把这个非线性曲线这个 degree 直接当成 activation function 嘛，那你就把原来这个纬度直接用那个 activation function 直接投影到很高纬度去，来再做线性分割嘛。那一样，你遇到同样问题，你不晓得到几个纬度嘛，你不清楚嘛，所以只能用猜这样去猜去 optimize，这是 SVM 的好处，也是它的缺点。那我们在做 deep learning，把这个观念抓过来。但 deep learning 为什么要 deep？ 就是这里在讲的啊。我上次也提到，我先讲概念，用中文讲概念就是说 ，OK，when we do the face recognition for the deep learning, probably first of all we try to separate only based on the eyes region. So if some cell, some map, some convolution is focused on is based on the try to separate by eyes. Some filter try to extract the information about the mouth, and we can do have a better separation for the mouth. So this concept is a PCA concept. PCA just do the feature extraction. So deep learning, the concept is I don't consider in the first few layers. Okay, I don't consider the big one. No, I just consider small features. In later one, I consider geometric information. So each time they just try to separate a small part in the first several layers. But in the later layer, they try based on the shape, based on some geometric position, they try to do discrimination. And finally, they combine together. Okay, so in this easy example is this the same. So suppose you only have a 2-dimension and you try to separate this one. So in the deep learning, what they do is try to here. Okay. So arrangement in the dimensions, I think this is easy to understand. In page 30, original is the dimensions x1 axis, x2 axis. This original input. Okay. After you do linear combination, have a z1 and z2. That's linear combination. And then based on z1 and z2, and z1 have its own activation function and transfer to A1, so A1 become value here. A2 become value here. So you combine A1 and A2 will become new dimension. And you'll find out, so this is A1 axis, A2 axis. So you'll find we can easy to separate the red dots and the blue dot. 这样你听得懂哈？这个它本来两个纬度嘛，它现在假设也是用两个纬度的话，那我每个纬度区分一下，那这个纬度是代表什么？你把它当成是 eigenvector 1这样子，就是为了区分眼睛用的。这个纬度可能是这个 A1 是区分眼睛用的，是 eigenvector 1。这个纬度是区分假设鼻子用的或嘴巴用的这样子。所以在这个 dimension， 我们每个人的眼睛就被区分开来了。在另外这个 dimension， 我们每个人的嘴巴就被区分开来了。这样混合在一起就变成一个新的 space， 它可以区分你的眼睛，又可以区分你的嘴巴，这样子是这个意思。好，那 so this one in our image case, this will be one image. There will be map 1, map 2, map 3, map 4. One map is meaning one distribution, suppose for eyes, for nose, for mouth. 这样听得懂吗？ 我这个例子是指假设两个纬度嘛，S1 S2，那你就区分这是区分眼睛的轴，这区分鼻子的轴。那以后再增加一个 A3，就区分嘴巴的轴嘛。那个是指一般我们这样讲。可是我们因为我们是做影像的，那影像是这里输入是一张影像嘛，我们的输出这里是一个 map 嘛，我们称为这样也是影像，可我们这里称为 map，feature map 嘛。那因为它是 map 是2D，那你就想象成是一个 eigen map，eigen 的东西，意思是说我第一个 map 就是第一个 convolution，这是 convolution 的系数嘛。我第一个 map 就专门在做我们每个人的这些人的眼睛不一样的区分眼睛用的。第二个 map 假设也是区分眼睛，可它分得很细啊，可能第一个 map 是区分这个眼角大家来区分，第二个 map 可能是另外一个眼角，所以它区分，然后第三个 map 可能是嘴巴不同的地方的嘴巴来区分这样子，所以我们 map 会越来越多嘛，就要把它一直分的，因为有时候我举例来讲，我们一开始假设16个 map，那16个 map 每个 map 区分的，像眼睛假设有6个 map 是专门来区分眼睛的，可是我有100万人，那我6个 map 区分以后，还是很多东西没有办法区分出来嘛，对不对？你要办法一层就把它区分完，所以我先把眼睛的部分先区分，嘴巴、鼻子都区分，那我再到第二个层的时候，为什么要做 down sampling？因为我单单存这些的话，那个小 feature 已经区分完了。我第二层的话，可能要区分是整个眼睛嘛，所以你当 sampling 完以后，我的 convolution 就会涵盖整个眼睛，就变有点眼睛的几何。那我再继续把它区分。所以你第一层根据你的那个眼睛的边边角角区分完以后，还是有些没办法区分，我用第二层，就第二层我来区分你用整个眼睛的形状来做第二区分。那第三个不是第三层，第三个我说一个 block 一个 block，你在做 down sampling，你就变成眼睛加嘴巴来做区分这样子啊，所以这个都是这个一样的概念。就例如说这个如果更多点的话，这里可能有时候还是有一些点没办法区分，你只要用下一层再继续做这样子，把这难区分的再把它区分出来这样子。所以 deep learning 就是我不是，它是这个叫 cascaded 的概念。cascaded 就是我不是一次把你全部区分完。cascaded 概念是反过来讲，是说我前面几层是要把不是人脸的先把它去除掉，我只留是人脸的，等到后面3层再来区分人脸的部分。因为大部分 background 都是就不是你要的东西这样子。所以它概念 cascaded AWS cascade 的概念是我一开始不是要区分你要的东西，我是把你不要的东西先把它排除掉，那后面才在做区分这样子。OK， 那这是一个很好的例子，跟你讲说这是 originally x1 x2 right now new space is a1 and a2 so you can do separation。 好，那再来讲就 before OK the older paper they each one they use the activation function, they use the sigmoid function, right？ 你旧的 paper 都是指一开始前面都只用 sigmoid 的嘛。那 why right now we use the do? Why? Because they feel OK, because I am deep enough. 我现在我的 deep 已经够深了。那我不需要每次都这样两面去区分嘛，我只要用 redo 这种 redo 的方式，每次只要区分开一点点，区分开一点点，那我这样就可以把你区分开，就最后可以把你完整的区分。So when we used deep neural network, we don't use sigmoid, we use redo because we don't need to use this nonlinear equation. Because this is first of all, this your computational time is a cost， 你会浪费你的运算时间，因为这是非线性的，线性比较容易嘛，非线性比较不容易嘛，你计算时间就省掉很多这样子，可以哈。那假设你有学 讯号处理的话，你有学讯号处理的话，你会发现任何的形状都可以用小坡来这样逼近，不同小坡的 wavelets 嘛，来逼近任何形状，这是一样的概念。我都用这种简易的方式，最后加起来就会趋近于非线性，整个非线性的东西这样子。好，所以我们目前大家在前面几乎都是用蕊路来做，或是蕊路的变形。只有到最后最后的时候，我们才用 sigmoid 的，不是不要用 sigmoid 哦，是到最后要输出的时候，我们才用 sigmoid 来做这样子。是目前大家都这样在做。OK，back to here。OK，好，那这个概念讲完了，我这是很好的一个例子，就空间转换这样子，但是用简单方式。We continue. So here is the meaning. So like this way, when your input dimension is higher, right? So each time this small one, small filter, and they become one space. 记得这个输出是一个类似这样一个轴，一个 space 而已哦，一个 axis 而已哦。但是你如果把它想成 eigenvector 的话，比较容易了解。因为 eigenvector 事实上我们叫 eigenface 哦，就是事实上有时候它是一张图。以我们例子，这是一个 map， 2D 的 map， 就这个轴是一个2D 的 map 这样子。啊，什么叫2D map？ 就是把假如20乘20的 map， 那这个轴就40维啊，400维这样子。啊，你把这个当成 map， 这个当成 map， 比较容易了解。我们现在一个 map 就是一个轴，就一个 eigenvector 的轴这样子。对，那 this one is try to let you know is because they have deep and more neuron, so become complicated. So deep meaning many hidden layers because many deep is deep is this one， 很多 layer 嘛，越来越多 layer 叫 deep。OK， now this is just one example of input and activation function as just value here. Just for your reference， 这就会慢慢的从这里这样一直过来到最后，这没有只是让你了解这数学运算是这样子。OK， but in your idea is like this one. The output finally the output is the class. Remember the output final output. This is a label. So label this result will be equal to 1 or 0. 你要最后做 labeling 嘛，你要去强制它变成你要的东西。像这个红 if red one is 1, blue one is 0. This output here. Output is here. So that's meaning your output will be, sorry, output, this final output, you combine, this will combine together. 这好像没有写。Yeah, this one, you finally your output probably this is 1, this is 0, or 1 is 0. 红色 1 or 0 or 1 something, just labeling. So those parameters you try to optimize it based on your output result. So you do back propagation， 从这里这样推回来，它这些参数就被优化了，这样子。So why we do the back propagation is because your result here, the ground truth is here. So that's meaning when you do the calculation, the final result will be back propagate. 我待会再讲，这里，所以 this one， 这个 this page is 38. This is your input. This original we talk about. This is your output labeling. So suppose we have 10 digits from 0 to 9. So when the input is 0, this will be 1. Suppose this is 0 1 2 3 for the digits， 就假设是0 1 2 3 4，那你输 if input is 0 this will be 1 other are 0 if input is 1 this will be 1 others are 0 and then after you have this kind of a labeling and this is the equation we already talked about this one, right? So we can backpropagate and optimize those parameters. Okay, so I talk about this one. 我再重讲一遍哈。所以 this is your network. This is your parameters, all parameters. This is your input. This will be your output. But here output will be y. So we try to estimate here, optimize this one. And here is just an example that you know. If you already, if you already optimize, you got the result. And this just that you know. 假设你这个系数都已经像1啊、1负啊，这个都固定的，这个就是你的值。This is just one example. This suppose you already trained, you got the parameters W and B, and this is your example. Okay? So it's the same example. This after training. So the same, this after training, they just tell you, okay, if input this one, input here, this is your training result. So this is the W, this is B is bias, and this will be your output here. And this output will become the input of next one. Okay, so this after you train, you got a result. So you'll find out this become complicated because this input X, this will be output, and this output will be here, input again. This output will be A1 the input, and W and B is the original train, and will become output. Output will become here. The layer, the next input for the layer. So this will become complicated. So don't do this way. We'll try to reorganize to be this one. So from inside here is here. In the beginning. Okay. So in the beginning, you have an input X will be here. And W1 and B1 will train unknown. So this output will be input for W2. So W2 input here. So this output will be input for next layer. So it's a one include the other one. So when we solve this network, why we use back propagation is because based on this equation, so the final this from the outside, so from the output, the final output is y, right? It's labeling. You label if it's 1, okay, the 1 input 1, you label 1 equal to 1, other are 0， 就你做 labeling 嘛，所以这是你的 label 的东西。那这是你的 XL 是 XL 减1的输入 ，XL is the output of X WL1 this one WL1 and input XL1. This you don't know. Sorry, this is you input of previous one. 就是你的前面的输出是现在的输入，就是这个 XL。那 this unknown you want to train W. So XL equal to both. So you have unknown from WL, you also have unknown WL minus 1. And this is your input, but your input will be previous output. So you backpropagate. Finally, you will reach the first layer. So first layer input will be X1, it will be this one, X1. And inside here is all our parameters you don't know, you want to optimize. 所以我们把这个式子写成这样子的话，那我们就把这数学式重新组织以后，你会发现最后这个式子就是这个式子。所以所有的 unknown 参数就一边，我的输入就最 最 initial 的输入就是在这里，就这个，这是最后输出，应该是 y 就这个输出，所以你的输入跟输入固定了，输出也固定了 ground truth， 你就是要去 optimize 这个。那所以整个数学是就是被 propagate 过来，你就可以了解一层一层，就一层包一层啊。那所以最后是输入就是 x， 那我们要解就解这个。那重点是说，你发现每一层都有一个 activation function 来做空间小小转换，这样子啊。OK， 所以这以前最基本的就是整个架构就是这样子啊。记得每一层的输出都有 activation function。So that's for the input and output, but final output, final layer， 最后输出这里。OK， the final output here, we need to have do the softmax layer. That's meaning we want to normalize because you suppose this is a ground truth labeling. Ground truth labeling is only you have a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, right? Have a 10 digits, but each time label has only one, other are 0. So that's meaning all your output, this output, the sum of output should be 1, probability should be 1. 因为你只有一个，你光数只有一个一嘛，假如0到9，你输入是1的话，就是 label 1的时候是1；你输入是5的话，label 5是1，其他都要0，那是你的 ground truth。那因为你要配合你的 ground truth，你的输出这一层，就这个输出这一层，你要 normalize 让它总和变成1，因为几率是1啊。G 是1。Because when you do test, you have one input digit， 你输入一张影像是0到9，那你输出的话 ，the output y from y0 to y9, each one has one probability。你 training 完，你做测试的时候，你输入任何数字，你输出的0到9，每一个都有一个几率值。Now, how can we design? How can we recognize which one? Okay, usually we pick out the maxima one, maximum probability. OK， 所以0到9的几率值，你要去取最大那个几率值。However, if this maximum value, suppose is smaller than some constraint, suppose smaller than some threshold, suppose is smaller than 0.6 0.6, probably this is not a result. So be careful. 那 one take all 哦，你输出的值，你不能说输入最大值就是你的结果，不对哦，因为有时候输入的值是不介于0到9，是一个乱七八糟 A B C D 的数字，不是0到9。那你输出的话，这个值，假如这个最后这个值小于举例啦，这根据键0.6，那这个值就不是介于0到9了哦。是一个非0到9的数字，所以你不能说输出值最大值就是我的结果，不一定，你要去判断这个值还是要大于它相似度要大于某个临界值才可以 take 这样子啊，这个要小心一下啊。OK， 那所以有时候我们在做 training 的时候，我们要训练0到9嘛，我们辨识10个数字，我们输入0到9，那有没有需要再多一个数字是 unknown 的数字呢？这是一门学问哦。我要辨识0到 if I try to recognize 0 to 9, have 10 digits, right? But do I need to have an additional output for the unknown input? 因为你不能保证说输进的值是一定0到9啊，你输进的值可能是非这些数字啊，但是你输出是0到9，一定会每个都有个几率值嘛。那你要不要多一个数字？哎，多一个分类是，就是非0到9的值，这要有时候会不一定要这样子，但是有时候需要这样子。 那如果不需要这个，变成你的输出的值，然后假设你小于就小于0.6好了，那就表示不是0到9，就把它不要它，这是一个方法。第二个方法是你加多一个分类，是非0到9的分类，这也是一个方法。那避免说你输出的值是错误。那到底这两个方式哪个方式比较好？都有人做，那都有不错结果，所以现在不能跟你讲哪一个比较好，都有人在做这件事情这样子啊。但是我说你有时候会看到会多一类出来了，他们称为 background。When you read the paper, you will find they have one more classification they call background. One more class. That's because if the input is anything but not what you need, and they will classify to the unknown background. Okay. So we try to normalize the output. We use a softmax. So what's a softmax? It's meaning, so this is your Z, right? The last layer, 最后一层, this is your Z. So you have positive and negative. And then why we need exponential term? Exponential term is try to that higher become more is higher. Okay. Smaller is close to the 0. So that's the purpose for the exponential term. Exponential term is you want to be higher, it become much higher. Smaller becomes 0. And then based on this exponential term, we do normalize. So this will become your denominator term, this one. 你要把这些总和输出的这总和当成分母，所以你要 normalize 变成0到1之间这样子，叫正规化。那这个就是 softmax， 称为 softmax。所以最后层会 normalize 所有的输出加起来等于1，是这个意思。然后你用 exponential term 再把它拉开这样子啊。OK， 那基本上 softmax here。So original up to here without softmax, that's wrong. You should have an additional term in the last term. Use the softmax that your output, the summation over the output become 1.0. Now, page 42 is try to explain to you why we need exponential term. 这个你自己在看，我刚刚讲的 why we need exponential term， 我把讲义把它放进来哈。So this original input after exponential term will become this one. So bigger will become much bigger. Smaller, this output Z will become smaller. So they will try to separate, push to the two parts. Okay. So then next one is how can you train? How can we learn? Based on the database. This is a network topology. Network 就是你要几个层，how many layers you want to decide. And this is a data collection. And finally is use the gradient descent to learn. So this data collection. So you need to collect the data and you need to label the output, labeling the output. So data collection also need to label the output. So label to be with the ground truth. So labeling, 那个 Tesla, they hire almost 2,000 people to do the labeling for the sizing. Tesla 雇了2000个人哦，在做 labeling 的动作。So the good labeling tool is very important. So, but in Taiwan, I did not see this one. Okay, but in the real world, in the company, I work with the company. They try to design the labeling tool for people to use. So MIT they designed a label me to help people to label. Okay, I work with the NCKU hospital, the doctor. We need to create a friendly user interface for data to do labeling. 一样，所以 labeling 事实上很重要哈。OK， OK， 这是 It's not. Okay. In page 50, sorry. So this here is how do you collect the data? How do you do the labeling? It's important. And page 50 is this input and this label, input label. So you need to collect the data for the data collection. Okay. And for the labeling, become the ground truth here. And this is your output. So between your estimation output and your ground truth, between this one, we call it a loss function. Okay. So we need to estimate the loss function. But basically, loss function has two kinds of loss function. One is cross entropy. The other is a mean square error. Okay. We talk, so cross entropy, you will see this y hat log y. Actually, 那个李宏毅老师的讲义有点跟一般怪怪的哈。我们通常是 ground truth 是用 y， 然后估计的值用 y hat y prime， 可是他就把它颠倒过来，我不知道为什么。他习惯就把它颠倒过来了哈。所以因为我用它讲，我就跟你讲一下。So this is ground truth, and this is log, this is estimation result. This meaning if this is 1, because your output is a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 9. So you have 10 digits here, 10 output. So if right now your input is 5, so only label 5 here is 1, other are 0. 你看到这里 summation 是10个没有，事实上它只有加1个，因为只有一个 label 是1，其他都0。因为这只有这里有个1，那 log y 这里是估计值，这个不好，记得 this is not a good one, but because this is the older paper is use this one, this equation. That's not good because the labeling zeros are also important. 所以他们最后会把这式子改掉，再加上一个 labeling 的数字1减 y， 就这里面会加一个1减 y head log 1减 y 啊，就是你的 positive 正的你也要估，负的错的你要估了，所以这个会改掉。那我刚刚上课讲的那个 label 1跟负1，那个 Retina 就认为说 Retina say okay label 1 and 0 are no good, should be label 1 and -1. Okay, so when we talk about RetinaNet, we talk about this one. So here has 3 kind of cross entropy, 3种。One is the label 1 and the 0, but here is only positive. The better way is you should plus the negative part. So the first one is only positive. The second method include the negative part. The third method is the Retina that label is 1 and -1 and have a better result. This is cross entropy. And cross entropy is for what? For discrete. Mean square error is for continuum. What's a discrete? Is a classification. Cross entropy is for classification. Cross entropy 是用来做分类用的哦。那 mean square error is continuum, like a bounding box. You want to approximate, 你要逼近那个 bounding box， 要逼它连续的这样逼它。所以 for the continuum, you should use mean square error 这样子。这两个是这样区分的哦。分类的用 cross entropy， 逼近的连续逼近的就用这种 mean square error 这样子。Okay, so we'll next hour we'll talk about the homework, and if we have time we'll try to finish this one. Okay, we take a break.